States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just as we always start, be mindful of our mission and vision statement as we go through our agenda tonight and make decisions. Our vision, inspiring all learners to be engaged and successful. Our mission, to provide an enriching environment to meet the needs of all learners. And then our core values of respect, integrity, students first, and excellence. So, and also I hope everybody goes through the holiday season, has a joyous and peaceful one. Hope you all enjoy it, the time off. So, and now we turn it over to Mary Beth for an organizational part.
I'll call this meeting to order. First thing I'll do is report on the canvass of votes. We, the undersigned members of the Cassuth County Board of Canvassers, hereby certify the following to be a true and correct abstract of the votes cast at the school election held on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021, for the office of Algona School Director at Large as shown by the county abstract returns. Rodney Davis received 776 votes. Gloria Bartelt received 718 votes. Jay Limbaugh received 760 votes. Scattering received 13 votes. We therefore declare Rodney Davis to be duly elected for the office of Algona School Director at Large for the term of 4 years. Gloria Bartelt to be duly elected for the office of Algona School Director at Large for a term of 4 years, and Jay Limbaugh to be duly elected for the office of Algona School Director at Large for the term of 4 years. And I will give the three of you the oath of office. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of board member in the Algona Community School District as now or hereafter required by law?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I'll open up the election of the board president. Does anyone have any nominations for board president?
I nominate Rodney Davis.
Does anyone else have any nominations? If not, I'll close the nominations for board president, and you can mark your ballot for president. And Rodney Davis is elected board president for the 21-22 school year, and I will give you the oath of office. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of board president in the Algona Community School District as now or hereafter required by law?
I do.
And I will turn the meeting over to you.
Okay. I guess the next item on the agenda is select the vice president. So we'll open it up for nominations.
I make a nomination for Mr. Jay Limbaugh.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing none, then I'll close the nominations, and we'll go to our ballots that are in front of you, and please mark them and send them this way to Mary Beth. Mary Beth is confirmed. We'll do the swearing in.
And it is unanimous. Jay Limbaugh is vice president.
Congratulations, Jay. Thank you. I'll give you the oath. Jay, do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duty of the office of Vice President of the Algona School District Board of Directors here as now or hereafter required by law?
I do.
Thank you. That's a tongue twister, right? Congratulations, thank you. All right, we'll just kind of move right into our regular agenda. Regular meeting agenda as you see, and has there been any changes? There hasn't, right?
There has not.
Okay. All right, we need a motion then to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Currently no hearing of delegates. Do we have any communications to the board? None seen. Then the consent items were sent out in your packet earlier, or late last week, so please review them and if there's any questions.
Just a little bit, our monthly ending balances are very, very strong, and they're aligned to what they have been in previous years. Our general fund balance, activity fund balance, and saved fund balance and insurance are all higher than they were at the same time last year. Our saved fund balance, we would anticipate it being higher as we're still continuing to pay out the project. Revenues are higher than our expenditures for the year to date, so overall summary of finances look very good.
And Andrew, you got a chance to look over the invoices?
I did. I think we had some, and I'll at very best we get to it, but some December 20th additions and a few things like that.
Anything highlighted on there are the updated changes, and it was due to because today was payroll, and it didn't include those in there for Friday's board packet.
But other than that, everything looked good.
Where's the special education building?
Garrigan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve the consent
Okay.
agenda.
Thank you, Andrew. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, we have Tom, thank you. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Joe, we'll move right into superintendent's report.
We've had 2 reorganization committee meetings this month, December 6th, and then also tonight prior to the meeting. Committee members, we have Rodney and Andrea, Pete Waltz as a staff member, Nicole Studer as a staff member, Justin Davis as a community member, and Haley Offerman as another community member. Laverne has also board representation as well as staff representation and community members. The committee, we've had really good discussions in our first 2 meetings. Talked a lot about the history between the 2 districts, whole grade sharing since 2015, shared programs. We have we use the same evaluation tool. We have the same calendar, same professional development schedule, same salary schedule. We've been involved in joint employment for 2 years. We share a director of transportation, also a director of buildings and grounds. So there's a lot of history of the 2 districts working together to do what's best for kids. The organization committee's responsibility is to put a petition together that would then go to the residents of the Algona School District and the Laverne School District for signatures. And if the signatures are collected, that would put reorganization of the 2 districts to vote in September of 2022. Tonight, the committee finalized the petition. There was a couple different things that needed to be agreed upon, such as name of the district, number of directors that we would have, and then also how those directors would be selected. And those things were finalized by the committee, and the petitions will be going out soon. So we will utilize you guys to help in gathering those signatures, and we have until March 1st to gather signatures on the petition. So a lot of work's been done with that group and kind of behind the scenes for the last couple years. A couple other items that are also on the petition are that a voter-approved physical plant equipment levy will also be on the ballot. Algona Community School Districts, we have the voter-approved PEPL of 67 cents per thousand. The Laverne District does not. We need both districts to have that voted on for the reorganization to work. So that will also be on the ballot. So there'll be three things on the ballot: reorganization of the two districts, voter-approved PEPAL at 67 cents per thousand. Very important for us to be able to communicate to all the Algona residents that is not an increase. That is a tax they already have. Okay, not a new tax. It's a tax they already have. And then a revenue purpose statement. Every school district in Iowa has to have a revenue purpose statement that we will use our property and sales tax dollars for infrastructure purposes. That's what our revenue purpose statement currently states, as does Laverne's. There is no change in the revenue purpose statement that will be on the ballot, except for it will go out farther. Currently, it ends at 2031 because that's when the SAVE tax ended previously. 2 legislations ago, they extended that to 2051. So 2 of the things that we'll be voting on from the Algona district are no changes at all. And that's the revenue purpose statement is exactly the same, and the voter approved PEPAL is exactly the same. And I think we're a group that can really help people with that information as we're going out and getting signatures on the petition.
Is that PEPAL, is it a 10-year vote?
It is a 10-year vote on the PEPAL, yes. Yep.
So is that something that could not possibly pass in the Laverne district?
It could, and in that case, the reorganization would not be able to take place. And the reasoning for that is, if it wouldn't, when 2 districts come together, it goes to the lesser of the 2. So our voter-approved PEPAL would go to 0, and we would not be able to operate as a district without those revenues.
When does our current PEPAL expire, the 67 cent?
30, no, that's not right. 2028.
Okay.
So Joe, I didn't think about this question earlier. We're not voting on that for the Algona Community School District, right?
No, but it will be on the ballot.
Yes, but it's just strictly for the existing Laverne School District.
Correct.
So we could, what I'm asking is, we could lose ours because our population cannot hold it.
No, we could not. The only way we could lose is if it didn't pass and we decided to
Yes.
reorganize, then it would be lost.
So I think one of the things we tried to be clear tonight is that we need to, there'll be 3 questions, right? And we need to vote yes on all those for
Yep.
this
All-
to move forward.
Yep.
The other thing is, there's the property tax incentive of $770,000, I think is probably a good talking point over the course of 4 years.
Yep.
And also, I was impressed by the Laverne district and how thoughtful and intentional they've been through this process. I mean, they've got money prepared on how they want to, or if they need to handle the building there and all these kinds of things. So it certainly does not burden our district at all.
Yeah, really good points, Andrea. You know, the number one objective of the reorganization is the 2 districts is to do its best for kids. It's simply to provide the best opportunities for the children in both districts. Neither district financially needs this reorganization, and I think that's important to emphasize in this case. There are financial incentives that are given with reorganization. To study reorganization, we are currently getting some of those financial incentives. If we did reorganize, we would continue to get those for an additional 3 years. A big thing for someone living in the Algona Community School District, your taxes would go down. They would go down for the first 4 years for sure. And that's because what they do to bring the lower of the 2 districts up, it happens slowly over time. So the reduction of tax rate in the Laverne district, whatever the total savings is, year 1 it's $220,000. The Algona people also get the same savings of $220,000. So over 4 years, there's a $777,000 property tax savings for both districts. And I think that's important for us to talk about with our people. We will have additional revenues that are also created. The property tax, we have more property, so that generates more dollars. The sales tax is a per pupil tax. We'll have more pupils, so more will be generated from that as well.
Roughly what are the class sizes of those?
They vary, I think from 10 to 1.
Okay.
So we administratively have looked at all of those and, space capabilities. We have space for all those things. if you remember, we moved our first grade from 4 sections to 5 sections this year. That might be more of a reality then, and that's where some of their, their staff can help us in this reorganization. But otherwise, we have space for any expansion if that would be needed.
But it's very low numbers.
It is very low numbers, yeah.
Okay.
And when is the, I think there's a date up there, maybe?
Yep, so the petitions will go out around the first of the year. We have until March 1st to collect the signatures. If we collect the needed signatures by March 1st, we will have a September election, September 2022. If it passes in September 2022, July 1st, 2023, the district would be reorganized. So the 2023-2024 school year, which is just a year away, we would be reorganized into one district. Some unique pieces of that would be, we vote in September to reorganize. We then appoint the new board, which would be 6 members of the Algona board and 1 member of the Laverne board. That was what the committee decided for the petition. So for next school year, since it's not a board election year, we would actually have 3 active boards. We would have the Laverne board, the Algona board, and the new proposed districts board. That would take place from September till July 1st. Good questions. Any other information that you guys have on that reorganization committee? Otherwise, petitions will be out to you guys soon.
Need signatures.
We'll need signatures. Yep, we'll need signatures. And that committee will be a part of that process also. Also on the, I did put on, we do have a Algona Laverne reorganization website. You can get to that by going to our district website and clicking under the district menu. So that's a lot of good information there that we want people to get to. And if there's any questions, there's also an FAQ that will be linked in there. Going back to our retreat this summer, we discussed the possibility or the need for an assistant principal at the middle school. Our middle school has over 440 students, has over 45 staff members, and 1 administrator at this point. And just the simple management of that number of students, that number of staff is difficult. And currently, we get bogged down in managerial duties, behavioral duties, instructional duties. If you take every administrative job and those are the 3 responsibilities, well, we got time spent, in one or the other, and the other 2 are left behind. Which I think has become something we want better. We want better in the building. Something I want you guys to continue to think about. And I thought this would be a good opportunity for any discussion on the position. The financial forecast models that I shared with you guys last month all have that administrative position built in. So we can't afford it, and it is sustainable. Those models went out through 2027. So I think it is something important for us to consider and discuss. There's no actions tonight. It's just an item for you guys to think about and discuss.
More discussion on that item?
What do we see? What are the makeup of the roles between the principal and the
Yep.
assistant principal, or
Yep.
does it depend on their skill set?
Probably depends on their skill set, Jay, but I think it's a really good question. Really, one of them would not be responsible for one thing, and what I mean by that is, they would both have instructional responsibilities. They would both have managerial responsibilities. They would both have behavioral responsibilities, and I think that's important. That this new person is involved in the day-to-day operations of the building, They're also involved in the instructional planning and goals of the building, as well as the day-to-day managerial pieces. So the person would work for me, like all the administrators do. I would evaluate that administrator just as I do the other administrators currently. We would just organize their responsibilities to meet the needs of the building. So I didn't give you one because it's really all of them. We're just taking all of them that we currently have and splitting them because we're not able to get to all of them currently.
So, go ahead.
Is that feedback from our current staff there? Is that a position they'd like, or how are they feeling, or?
Yeah, certainly our staff feels that we are not able to meet all those three needs consistently. We're spread too thin, no doubt about that. And that comes heavily from that staff.
Speaking of staff, I know for a while we were down a few staff members in the middle school.
Yeah.
Are we back up to
We are there right now.
where
Yep.
we need to be?
Yep, we are. We have additional, if you remember back, one of our use of ESSER funds was to create additional positions so that we could still put those interventions in place. So we're back to that point right now. One of those positions, funding goes away after next school year, but that would be a really good example of where Laverne staff that comes in can help us and can help us continue and offer the programs that we do. And, whether it's really one of those staff members or just on paper an additional FTE that comes from there, that's a really good use for one of those people.
So back to the administrator, and I guess I would just be thinking as a staff member, is it gonna be pretty clear then who to go to?
I think it has to be, right? It has to be. I think you have to be careful in those organizations that if you simply say this person only does this and this person only does this, you really haven't resolved the issue we have right now. Because if they're not available to do that, then you're right back to where you are. We just have twice as many people available to handle the needs of the district is how I think is the most effective way to handle that. So you need to be clear about what that organization looks like and what that split looks like. But I think really you got twice as many people to handle the managerial, the behavioral, and the instructional needs of the building is the simple way to look at that organization.
Is this a consistent position in districts our size around in our area?
It is, and I can provide that for you. Going off conference would be really easy. Typically, if you get to 350, that's where you look at the second administrator or dean or whatever your structure may be. But I can certainly provide some of that information so you guys can see that also. I think that would be helpful.
Is it different dynamics, or is this something potentially that's coming from a high school perspective? Or is it just assistants are more needed in the middle school?
Yeah, I think it's more of that we just have needs that aren't met. With the number of students, the number of staff, support that needs to be provided, it's not able to be provided by a single person.
But at the high school, you feel like
Well, in the high school, we have the second person. We have the dean of students at the high school.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so that's where a lot of those managerial and behavioral things fall upon our dean of students at the high school, and that's how we're able to handle that number of students and staff at that level. We don't have that position in the middle school level. That's a good question.
I know we call it a dean in the high school,
Yeah,
and we call it an assistant principal if we do what it is. And would, like Lori said, will that cause, or will we title make a difference?
Yeah, I'm not sure. At one point, you used the title Dean of Students because they didn't need an administrative degree to do that. That's not the case anymore. You still have to have that. Dean of Students' responsibilities are typically different. They're student services, everything directly to the students. They don't evaluate teachers and aren't involved in instruction as much. I think it would be important in the middle school for our person to be involved in instruction and have that opportunity to be in our classrooms and evaluate our teachers, which is why I would recommend the assistant principal model in relation to the dean of students.
I know we talked about that this summer.
Yeah, yeah.
Good discussion.
And then the last thing on my report, the Iowa School Performance Profile. We've been waiting, the data, Mrs. Eischen shared the data with you already from our Iowa assessment scores from last spring. But then they take all of that data, use previous years, and they come up with the Iowa School Performance Profile. And this is a requirement from the federal education law that every school has to have some type of reporting system. And ours is called the Iowa School Performance Profiles. Our scores, I'm giving you an overview today. We will give you a more thorough look at our January board meeting and also in our January XIAC meeting. We're going to go through this with some of our parents and community members. But our high school was acceptable, which is the same rating they had previously. Our middle school was the same, acceptable, same as they had previously. And our elementaries continued to be high performing, which is awesome. And that's really exciting. We'll dig into those more, like we said, and get that information to you. Looking at some state trends, so between 2019 and 2021, because we had the year in between where we didn't take ISAPs. So in that time period, the number of schools in the high-performing category just decreased by 26. And we probably assumed we were going to have a drop in scores, and I guess statewide they would say they probably did, but we did pretty good. We didn't see the same kind of drop, and I think that's a testament to our kids and our parents and our staff. Also, the number of schools in the needs improvement and priority categories, which is the lowest two, that increased from 7 to 21. So statewide, the performance profiles dipped. They don't look as well as they did. We did not see that same decrease in the Algona Community School District, which that's a great job by all of our people and everything that they're doing with our kids. And like I said, we'll give you a little more thorough look at that. We have shared the assessment data with you, so we'll try to dig into some of these ratings and things that look good, things that we need to improve upon at our January meeting.
Any other questions for Joe? Joe, thank you for a wonderful report, and obviously the weekly reports are just great to have each week, so appreciate all that effort. Administrative reports. Tonight we have Ms. Jill Schucher and Mrs. Molly Lighting with us. Appreciate you taking your time in December to do your report.
So crazy. All right, we are going to talk about elementary MTSS, which is multi-tier systems of support. And I think last year, Megan Rasmussen and Mr. Rose were here talking about, I think they might call it RTI or like that in the middle school, and talking about some of the interventionists and stuff. So we're going to share just kind of what it looks like from the elementary perspective. So this is something that the state has been working on for a while now, since we started doing we use FAST testing, like our standard, we do that 3 times a year, those kinds of tests, and the state's been pushing, and Jane probably actually knows like the details of the implementation of what the MTSS for the state of Iowa looks like. So this is something that we knew we needed to, with our interventionist positions that we were able to add, needed to get down to some of the details of that. So we started last year working on this. It started kind of with a group of the people that were going through a STI course. And then we took it to each building to get their ideas and figure out what do they think MTSS would look like. And then we compiled all of the responses from different buildings, and then we rolled it out to the teachers. This should have been August of this year, not next year, sorry on that. We're planning ahead. And then we're just gonna continue to change. So this is what we're gonna talk to you about tonight is what we have right now, but as we realize things are changing and our student needs are changing, we're gonna continue to change. On that little pyramid picture, there's the universal targeted intensive, we'll talk about that. And that goes for both academics. We've primarily focused on reading and math at this time. And on the right-hand side, it has behavioral, and that's still definitely a work in progress for us. We're trying to figure out how to identify the tiers for the behavior stuff as easily as we do for reading and math. And we're working on it, we're just not quite there yet. So most of the stuff we talk about today will be for like us thinking about reading and math for our elementary kiddos.
The first tier that we're going to talk about is that large chunk at the bottom is the universal instruction. Tier 1 is what it's called. This is the grade level core instruction that all students receive. So in that area of that triangle, we hope to meet the needs of 80% of our kids with just that grade level core instruction, which is what they receive in the classroom each day from their core teacher. That includes literacy, math, and behavior or SEL learning. This is a time, that universal core instruction is a time we don't pull kids out of the classroom for interventions or for IEP minutes and things like that. This is something that all kids receive instruction at Algona. The next part of the universal tier would be any additional grade level instruction for some learners. So kiddos who aren't doing as well on the certain skill you're working on right now in class, that's when teachers pull those kids back to work on just those grade level skills, just a little extra practice or a little extra reteaching. That still falls within that universal tier instruction. So an example of this might be, I'm doing a coaching cycle right now with 2 4th grade teachers. Within that coaching cycle, we saw that we didn't meet the needs of all of our kids on the unit 4 assessment on fractions. So within that reteaching time, we pull kiddos back who need some reteaching on those standards to try to get them to that level of proficiency that we want to see so that we can meet the needs of at least 80%. Ideally, it's more than that, but that is our baseline goal is 80% of those kiddos.
Probably should have mentioned at the beginning. So Molly has been the instructional coach at Lucia Wallace and at Laverne. So with this and really focusing on MTS in the middle or in the elementary, we have she's just staying in Algona now. So she's still the half-time instructional coach at Lucia Wallace, and then on top of that, she kind of oversees all of the stuff that's happening with MTSS in the elementary. So all the stuff that we're talking about, she had a big role in the creation of how we put everything together, and a lot that we're going to talk about with processes and stuff. She's kind of overseeing and leading the interventionists, classroom teachers, all of us through kind of like what this might look like.
And a big part of with that is, Molly is implementing the system at Bertha Godfrey, Bryant, and Lucia, because we know the interventionist people, those are going away, right? When those ESSER dollars are gone, those people are gone. So her work is how we sustain this moving forward.
And that goes back to the green level, the universal. We feel like if we do get to that where 80% of our kids are getting their needs met with the core instruction, like what we're using for math and reading, and we're doing a good job with that instruction, then we have fewer kids that need more support from outside people. So really focusing on what does our tier 1 look like, what does that universal look like, so the less children we have in the tiers that go up in the targeted and intensive, the less extra support we need from outside, like interventionists or things like that. So the next level in the yellow is the targeted tier. This is in addition to the universal tier, so they never stop getting that grade level stuff. This is like on top of that. So sometimes it's in the classroom, and sometimes it's pulled out where they go into the interventionist classroom. Sometimes it is just from, not it's just, but the classroom teacher provides the intervention. They're able to pull a small group focusing on skills that we know those students are maybe falling behind in. So they provide instruction based on skills they need. We progress monitor along the way to see, like, is the instruction that we're giving to those students making a difference? Are they learning some of the things that we want them to be learning? And then kind of depend from there what decisions happen next. Do we continue with instruction? Do we do something different? Things like that. So, and then some of it's pulled out where maybe they'll go to the interventionist room and then do the same sort of thing, but the classroom teacher just, there's not enough time in the day to meet with every single small group. So sometimes they go to the interventionist room for the same sort of thing. Skill-focused instruction. We know we've done different assessments to kind of figure out where the students are and what skills we think we should target to help them, and then progress monitor and go along the way. We also have, just with how our interventionist schedules and things work out, that sometimes they push into the classroom. So the teacher's teaching the whole group math lesson, and our interventionist is able to like pull a small group to work with her and kind of like parallel teach basically, I think. So the classroom teacher's up and maybe just like working with me in a small group, you're able to focus a little more. I can tell you directly, you get it on paper and help you see it, things like that. So the same thing that everyone else is doing, they're just working at maybe like a table with the interventionist just to keep them going on that grade level stuff too. So in addition to the universal. And then when you move up to the red, this is in addition to the other things. So as you go up the triangle, you don't lose the layer below you. You keep getting more. So the intensive is just same sort of thing. We determine based on skills or what gaps or whatever students have, and then maybe what's happening in targeted, depending on how it's working or not. Maybe we think, oh goodness, this student needs a more intense intervention. That could be like in a smaller group, a one-on-one, a longer time with that interventionist, and keep working on whatever that the grade level skills that we think, or whatever could be. It's most likely when they're into intensive, there's they might be a couple years behind. It just depends. Like in 4th grade, if you're still reading or doing math at a 1st or 2nd grade level, then you probably got up to intensive intervention. It looks different in kindergarten because they probably don't have as big of gaps because they haven't been in school as long. So it can be we don't really think of it as special education, but the very top would be kind of like, or outside of the pyramid, depending on how people put it. Some of them is for learners that have IEPs or with the special education, but the top of the pyramid that we think about, that we have students that are receiving intensive interventions, they're working in a small group with the interventionist. Once again, the interventionists don't just randomly pick what they want to do. Today I feel like reading this, and tomorrow we're going to do this. It's intensive based on the skills that they need. We have different programs and things that they're trying. We progress monitor along the way to make sure that instruction is having an impact on the student. Anything you want to add on that? They still have the other 2 layers with it too.
Okay, so within those tiers, what we kind of did as part of the position that I'm currently in as the MTSS coordinator for the elementary was kind of to create the system of what does this look like for our teachers and for our students. So really, how do students receive more support? That's kind of the question. We want to make sure that we're all doing the same thing, and that's why we knew we needed something from Bertha to Bryant to Lucia to look the same. So this process is the same no matter what building you're in our elementary. We compile student data and analyze that data as a team of teachers. So that could be, I'm involved in that, classroom teachers, interventionists. It could be a special education teacher because they just bring so much more knowledge on some other skill gaps. We fill out, and you'll see these categories on the screen. I have this spreadsheet that we fill out based on the kiddos that need that support, or when teachers bring them to me and say, I think this kiddo needs some extra support based on what I've seen in the classroom and some of the assessments that I've done with them. So we just look at, okay, what is that deficit skill or skills? What are they missing? What diagnostic assessment have we done? And when did we do that? What classroom data are we seeing? Do we have things that support the thought that there are some issues here? And then any next steps that we're going to take. Sometimes that means we're looking at this data and they're not incredibly discrepant from peers. So it might just look like, oh, we're just going to continue with some extra support in the classroom, help the teachers figure out different ways to support those kids within small groups in their classrooms. And then will a student be put on a formal plan? So are we going to create this formal plan for kiddos so that we know there's an intervention in place, there will be progress monitoring attached to it, and continue to look back at that kiddo every month. So then that next piece is we determine that skill deficit, and we plan the intervention and instruction. So we do this again all as this team. We figure out what is our plan, what are we going to do with that kiddo. Sometimes this looks like at Lucia Wallace right now, we use a curriculum called 95% group that focuses on phonics skills for kiddos. So it might be if we're in that skill 3.2, things like that. That's what that instructional plan kind of looks like. We look at when are we going to start this intervention, how long are they going to be in this intervention, what's our plan, how long is it going to take, how much time in the day are they going to be pulled out, how often, because sometimes we have intervention groups that meet daily, sometimes it's every other day. And then the group size, is it a one-on-one situation, are they in a small group of 3 or 4? We document all of that information. And then who's responsible for the intervention, because that might not be our interventionist, it could be the classroom teacher. Then we look at what are we going to use to progress monitor, because we have to make sure that we're monitoring the progress of the specific skills we're working on. So we want to make sure we have that in writing of what are we actually going to do to see if there's progress being made. Supports in Tier 1, so that Tier 1 goes back to that universal core instruction. So what are we going to do in the classroom? What is that classroom teacher going to do to support that student who we know might have some benefits from 2 years ago? How am I going to make sure that what I'm doing in my core instruction is still accessible to that student? What are we going to put in place for that kiddo? And then parent contact, which is something that I feel like we've done a much better job at this year, just because it's in the forefront of our mind in this system. Because I think sometimes we kind of lose that piece. We're always making decisions what's best for kids, but we forget sometimes like those parents really want to know what's happening also. So we make sure we contact parents and let them know what's happening. And our goal is that each month we continue to update parents on the progress of the intervention. Then you see that we have the intervention check-in date and a goal. So we set a goal for that kiddo and decide when are we going to come back to the table to talk about that.
And this is when I talked about the system that Mrs. Lighting's building. This is it. You know, this is the system that we have in place, regardless of the grade or the content. It's this right here, and that she monitors to make sure that all kids are getting the support that they need. Along with this next slide, I believe, probably has part of our system. Yeah.
Yes. So that next part is how do we track that progress? Because it's wonderful to have those things in place for kids, but if we aren't really tracking what we're doing to see if it's making the right difference, if that's really working or not, then it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So the provider of the intervention monitors the student progress weekly and reports this data in student success, which is a place where all of our students are in there. You can mark down if they're receiving interventions, how they're doing on those interventions, and track all of that data in one place. And then the intervention and classroom data is analyzed once a month by the team of teachers who created the intervention plan to determine if instruction is continued. If things are going well in that intervention, we're seeing growth, but not quite where we need to be. We'll continue that intervention as is. Do we need to change something? Do we need to intensify? Do we need to lessen the intervention? Have they grown so much that maybe we can back off a little bit and kind of pull some of that support away? Or stop completely. Have they met our goal? Are we to a point where they've met the goal and they no longer need that intervention support? So that's what you'll see there is just those categories that we fill in each month. The progress on intervention, so we get that information from student success as well as the interventionist or the teacher who's doing the intervention. They report on that progress. We look at progress in Tier 1, which is that universal instruction. So are the things that we're working on in the intervention, are they going into the classroom and are they really making progress on classroom things as well? A fidelity check is something that if we see that they're not being progress made, we have to go through these steps of, okay, what might be getting in the way of that progress? Sometimes a fidelity check is me going in and watching the intervention to make sure that the steps of the intervention are being followed, that teachers don't have questions on it. Is this really what this part means and things like that? And sometimes it's looking back at things like attendance data or special things that are happening. Did we have a snow day? Did we have, was the student quarantined for 2 weeks? Things like that really affect the fidelity of that intervention. You don't expect to see the growth that you want if the things aren't happening in the intervention, that they aren't meeting with those kids on a regular basis and things like that. So then we talk about our next steps and changes, and then again, set our next goal and our intervention check-in date.
So we put a few pictures in just on impact on learning. So this is 3rd grade fact fluency. So on the picture it's 2 separate pictures, just a tiny little white space. 3rd grade students we work on knowing their addition facts within 20. So So the first little column is within 10, the second column is within 20, and the third column is no intervention on the left-hand side. So that was at the beginning of the year. And then the picture on the right where there's just one dot in the within 10, and then there's fewer dots in the within 20 and more dots in the no intervention. So those are all the student names colored by their classroom teachers. So we kind of just keep track of as they progress through intervention. This is an intervention that's mostly done by the classroom teacher. They're pulling it back, they're working on these skills of addition within 20 or within 10, depending on where they fall. And then as they show that they're fluent in those and they can do those facts and stuff automatically, then they get moved to whatever, if they go up to from the within 10 to the within 20, or if they go from the within 20 to not needing an intervention anymore because they have it. We have one dot in the within 10, and so we had many students that moved to the no intervention column, which was good, but our one little dot in within 10 is not showing progress. So then we've intensified the intervention, we bumped it up, they're meeting with the intervention and they're getting even more. And in fact, in this case, we're looking at some things for special education too, to make sure that that student has support that it needs for all of the math. So based on this is just one picture of fact fluency. Fourth grade fact fluency looks similar. Instead of, well, actually on the left hand, on the top left, there's a little box that's within 10. Our fourth graders should not be having interventions in addition within 10. They should know that by fourth grade. So they should automatically know 5 and 5 is 10, 6 and 4 is 10, all of those within 10. And then you can see more, there's they're within 20. And then we get into the multiplication, there's foundational, 4s and 8s, 3s and 6s, 7s, 9s, and then no intervention. So then once they get through their addition in third grade, they start working on multiplication. And so the chart on the left is our beginning of fourth grade data from this year. And once again, we wouldn't expect to see any fourth graders that come in within 10 or within 20. We want them to all be into the multiplication. So on the picture on the right, you can see there's nobody within 10, nobody within 20 anymore. So that's good. We still have some kids in that foundational spot. So those are some of those kids, same thing. We're working on, they've made movement, and we're really proud of that, and we can celebrate that. But we're also knowing that they're just not quite where we need them to be to getting to that moving out of intervention. And once you consider the amount of time that we've been in school at this point, we've intensified those interventions and made some changes to like the instructional plan to help them get those skills. We just know how important some of that fact fluency, just knowing things like that. It's difficult to do fractions. I can't even say the name. But if something is the next unit, it's hard. If you don't know your math facts, it's going to be a challenging unit. So we have some other supports in place for them too to be successful in their universal tier, but we also have intensified their interventions to make anything about that.
This is just another example. This would be on the reading side of things. So this might be something that we look at during those progress check meetings. This is a CBM score, so it's a curriculum-based measure. It's actually a fluency read. So this particular student was in an intervention in fourth grade on phonics skills. Ideally, we wouldn't see that still in fourth grade, but we targeted the skills that this kiddo needed, and it was in phonics. As that kiddo moved out of that phonics intervention, we kind of lessened the intensity of that intervention because that student made great progress, and now that student is in a fluency intervention, which is more targeted to what the skills are that he needs right now. So you can just see that we looked at a graph like this and say, okay, is that trend line, which is the blue line, is it above that goal line, and are they making progress? In this case, we would say yes. So this would be a great example of the things we're doing right now are working. Now, there are plenty of examples of kiddos where it might not look like that. So those are the conversations that we have of, okay, what do we need to do next? How can we mix things up for this kiddo? Do we need to have different types of instruction, intensify with more time, or a smaller group, and things like that. But this is just an example of the things you might see when we look at the reading data.
So those were Lucia Wallace examples, but the other buildings would be similar. We just pulled from ours.
We just wanted to collect a little bit of feedback from teachers on the system so far, and things that we could do better, and things that they like about this system at this point. We had teachers say that having the tiers defined, which is what we did at the end of the school year last year, has really helped them clarify what it is that they're responsible for and what it is that it means to move up within tiers of instruction, and really the why behind we do the things that we do. They feel like they have a better understanding of what students are working on when they are pulled out for interventions and title support, because that was kind of the feedback we received last year was, I really don't know, I send my kiddo to a title class, but I have no idea what's happening in there, so I can't support those skills when they come back to me for small group. So because we have those monthly meetings now with the interventionist and the classroom teacher there, they can have those conversations of what skills can I help work on in the classroom that you guys are also working on in those small groups. The feedback is just what Jill had said to begin with, working really well for reading and math right now, but we do need to figure out a way to do more support for behavior. And that's kind of what we've been working on a lot in the past couple of months. And then teachers also want a better understanding of the process for when students aren't making progress in Tier 3 interventions. So we know that happens if we get to a Tier 3 intervention. We've got a lot of time invested. We know we're targeting the right skills, but they're still not moving. Then what? They want to know what support is there for that student at that point.
So kind of back to the beginning, like this is our plan at this time, and it seems to be going well, but we just know like as things change, as our system changes, as far as like our interventionist support, and hopefully if we have more kids meeting that 80% in the universal, then it may change kind of how it all looks, but that what we have in place right now is not a set in stone, and we think that teachers know that too, that this is going to change as we figure out what our school needs, then we will make changes to that. It's not just going to be this is how it is forever. It's how it is until we need to make changes and improve something. So
Question?
we talked pretty fast. Any questions?
I'll comment. I've always had this belief that the correct process produces quality results. And any process really has what I call 4 distinct areas. Many times it's called designing or setting a goal and then implementing the goal, implementing the plan. And many times we fall short because that's as far as we go. We forget the next 2 steps. If you've got the next 2 steps covered, you always set a goal, design, set the goal, you implement the plan, then what I'm seeing up here is really good, because then you're evaluating what's occurring, and then you're analyzing the data, and then redeveloping the plan as needed for the individual kid. And that's the key to it, is you take the data, reanalyze it, and what does that kid need to be successful, redevelop that plan as needed, and then re-implement. And that will lead to quality results. So it's a good plan. Thanks.
I think another thing that's important is like kids that are in intervention or whatever, they're still getting the core. So we know that's going to, we don't know, but most likely that's going to be hard for them. Like if you're still working on addition within 20 and now we're working on multiplying fractions or whatever, like it's going to be hard. So the support that we put into Tier 1 to help them be successful is also important. And because we don't want them, if they don't have that universal, that core of adding fractions, then they're either going to be farther behind next year when they go to 5th grade or go to 4th grade because they've missed that. So it's also thinking about that differently too, is like when they are in our class, if we know they struggle with that, what supports can we give them? Is it manipulative? Is it a multiplication chart? Is it something so they can still try and stay up on their current standards so they don't even get farther behind too?
What kind of resources are you guys using on the behavioral side? Are you trying to start from scratch, or are there other systems out there or approaches that we can tag on to?
We feel like we have a pretty good universal. So all of our students with the restorative practices, they have a community building circle in their classroom each day, like to build relationships with their teachers. Every classroom teaches second step, which is like our social emotional curriculum. They all have one time every 6 days, they have a guidance class with Mrs. Roberts. So that's what we're saying is like universal. So we're teaching some of those social emotional behavioral skill things that we need to work on. And then that's the kind of, there's not like we don't have like a program or anything in place to when they move up. Like a lot of teachers do a lot of really great things, But then it maybe wouldn't be, you know, when they go to another teacher the next year, that isn't always the same. And we're in our classrooms now where it's just like, I'm in the classroom with my 20 kids, I can have plans in place and plans working, and that works in my classroom. But then maybe even when they go to specials, they go to music or they go someplace else, that teacher changes, so sometimes those behaviors and things change, expectations, whatever. And then when they move to the next grade, that next teacher may not know, oh, I had this kid is a really successful person, but they're homework. So I always let them pass out papers, I let them help me with the challenge, I talk to them every morning about the Cowboys or whatever football team. But then when they move on to the next teacher, we don't have some of those things in place. So what we need to figure out is, what's that look like, so some of those plans that individual teachers do such a great job of doing can be more universal, so other teachers know, so our teacher will know, so our teacher will know, and when they go next year will know. And then how do we kind of progress monitor and track those things
Right.
to see that that's also making a difference. And
Yeah.
that's the part that we don't really have. We have some kiddos on like plans with their teachers and they can earn points and do different things, but we don't have a great way like we do with reading and math to always like check.
Our system in regards to behavior is not as strong. You know, these guys have put our system in place for our reading and math, and that's good. We think our universal behavior is consistent across our buildings and grade levels, but our system for as we move up the tier is what we got to continue to work on.
And we have restorative leads, like in the elementary. That's one of the things that we're working on, trying to define more specifically what that looks like and how they can be supportive of teachers and putting some of those things in place. So I think, we definitely don't have it all figured out, but we have some places that we're working on and trying to figure it out, and just trying to put things with maybe like individual teachers, but not as much system-wide as like it is for.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Joe. Okay, we'll continue moving on to new business. First is our first reading of the 500 series.
This is just our first reading of the 500 series. Again, you can access our 500 series online under district, school board, and our policies. I also put the link in your general information. The 500 series is devoted to our board's goals and objectives and assisting the students in obtaining their education through those goals and objectives. So we'll come back in January for our second reading. I have started the process of going through those to see, to make sure that we are aligned to the recommendations for the policies. And if I see any of those changes, I'll bring those to you for our second reading in January.
Any questions on any of those yet? All right, we'll move on next to approve the dropout prevention application.
We approve our dropout prevention amount annually to fund our dropout prevention and at-risk programs. And the first question is, what's it fund? It funds salaries. We pay a number of different people out of this, parts of people in most cases out of this. It is a per pupil amount, so 0.046 times your district cost per pupil times your certified enrollment. And that number is not the same in every district. That's going to be probably a legislative item this year in Des Moines because the dropout prevention at-risk funds are not equal across the state. They change everywhere. We get almost the full funding. We get about 95% in Algona. However, if it was fully funded, we'd get about 40,000 more. So that will be something that we'll see if that changes over this legislative session. It's a very valuable supplement. Over $500,000 come from this that we use for salaries for our staff. Allows us to fund programs that we wouldn't be able to have without it, including our at-risk TNT program at the high school, and again, a number of our different staff members throughout the entire district. So I do recommend the SBRC modified supplemental amount for dropout prevention.
Any questions before otherwise we need a motion?
A motion to approve the SBRC modified allowable supplemental amount dropout prevention.
Thank you, Tom. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andrea. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on next to approve the Cassuth County Conference Board member.
This is an annual appointment. We do this every year, appoint one of our board members to be a part of the Cassuth County Conference Board member. Jay, were
I
you?
was
Last
on
time.
that council.
Yes, Jay did that for us for this year, so we need to appoint someone for this coming year.
You get a packet, what, in January or something, and you discuss kind of how they set salaries for the county levels,
How many meetings does that?
County Government.
county.
Gotcha.
Two, is it two?
Mainly just the auditor or assessor. Then it's one or two meetings.
Yeah.
COVID was a little bit different, but it's an interesting process.
I've done it once in the past, and I think Brett had too, so that, do we have interest in possibly doing that, or G, are you invested in
Work with the mayors and city
Yep.
council members and things like that. I can certainly do it again.
Is there any other interest? If not, we need a motion then to approve Jay.
So moved.
Thank you, Andrea. Do we have a second?
Session.
All right, thanks, Gloria. We have a motion and a second to approve Jay to be appointed to the Cassuth County Conference Board member. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Open enrollment.
We have 5 open enrollment applications this month. The first 4 are all from the Algona district out, but they're all due to family move. So those must be approved by law. And then the 5th is a 3rd grader from the North Union District to Algona. So I do recommend the approval of all those applications.
So would these transfer mid-year, or is this for next year, or what's this?
No, this year, so maybe students who attended North Iowa, their family moved, their new residency is in Algona. So that would be one of the criterias that you approve those back to with the
Okay,
district they
back to-
attended.
Gotcha, okay.
Is there any more information on the last person? It's not a moving. Is there more information we need to be aware or not?
No. For the, into Algona,
Right, for the last person.
they,
Adriana,
no, not that I'm aware of. They, is that a family move? I'm trying to think. That's probably a family move as well. If it's a 3rd grader from North Union to Algona, that would be the reason they're applying now is they moved out of the district, applying, open enrolling back in. So it's not a change in enrollment, it's a change in just the open enrollment application back into the district.
so in that case, it'd still be under law to approve.
Yes, they would, you're right. Yep,
Okay.
you're right.
All right.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Andrew. Do we have a second? All right, Jay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under personnel, new contracts.
Contracts, we have Blair Bradley for 9th grade boys basketball, Joe Taylor, high school special education. That is a position, we had an elementary special education teacher leave late in the summer. We were not able to hire that position. Megan Hamilton, who is a high school special education teacher, has a background in elementary. She's interested to move there, so she's going to move to the elementary, and Mr. Taylor is able to start a 2nd semester. Brooke Botcher as a cheer sponsor. She's going to split the cheer sponsor stipend with our current sponsor. And then Michelle Parsons, transportation teacher associate, so she's an associate on one of our buses. And then also another contract for a teacher associate during the day.
All right. Any questions? If not, we need a motion for approval.
Make a motion to approve the new contracts.
Thanks, Tom. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thanks, Andy. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now resignations.
We have 6 resignations. Samantha Gotti from our head varsity volleyball coach, Janae Lager from the kindergarten teacher. The family is relocating for some employment. Christy Roberts from 7th grade volleyball pending suitable replacement. Also Christy Roberts from 7th grade track and field pending suitable replacement. Mindy Thielen from a teacher associate at Garrigan, and Serena Chata, a teacher associate at Lucia Wallace.
We also show at Diane Burbach Food Service. Is that?
Yes, you are correct. I skipped over that. Thank you, Rodney. And
Okay.
Diane Burbach in food service.
All right.
So was the first one pending a suitable replacement, or?
Yes, I guess officially it would be also pending suitable replacement.
So moved on the resignations.
Thanks, Jay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Todd, motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And 9, looking for a motion to go into closed session under section 21.51I for performance review of superintendent, progress review there. So we need a motion for that. Jay's got a motion. Do we have a second? Thanks, Gloria. We have a motion and a second. And is this a roll call?
Yep.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Bartel,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Limbaugh,
Yes.
Louwagie,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Vinci.
Yes.
All right. We are now moving to closed session. We'd ask, thank you everyone for being here tonight, and we'd ask that you allow us that opportunity. You said the last name, you threw me off there. Man, that's my last name.